Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Welcome. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. It was a somber day in Montreal as many gathered to remember the 14 women killed during the Polytechnique massacre, which occurred 35 years ago. As the fall session at the Alberta legislature concluded, a question was asked if we could see a cabinet shuffle. And BCN's Landon Hickok talks about a local charity which is on a mission to bring some holiday cheer to families who cannot bring Christmas home on their own.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Several dignitaries gathered in front of the main Montreal campus of Polytechnique today to pay tribute to the 14 women who were tragically killed at the engineering school back in 1989. 13 others were also injured in the attack by anti-feminist Marc Lépine. He later took his own life, but prior to that, ranted about how feminists ruined his life. Now, braving a cold winter wind, the school's current president says there's a duty to remember what happened and to learn from that tragedy.
Yeah, I feel like every year, because what happened here in 1989 was really horrible. But we need to remember these young ladies that lost their lives. There were 13 students, one employee. We need to remember what happened and what they were, and we need to make sure we learn from this. And this is why every year we try to make sure that our university is really a place where diversity, women, can feel welcome, and they feel like they can blossom within the profession and within the path that they have chosen.
An Ontario Conservative MP slammed the NDP in Parliament on Friday, saying the party really needs to stand by its own words. Eric Duncan says NDP leader Jagmeet Singh cannot attack the Liberals during question period, then always vote to support them a short time later.
He won't back up their own words by what they've said in just recent months. It was the NDP leader that said the Liberals are too weak, too selfish, and too beholden to corporate interests to fight for people. He said he ripped up the coalition agreement that's kept the Liberals in power, yet as soon as the stunt got over, he taped it back together and gave it back to the Prime Minister. So the question, Madam Speaker, for the Liberals is, will they work with the NDP finally and not quadruple the carbon tax, but allow Canadians to have their say in a carbon tax election, or are they too scared to what Canadians have to say to them?
And the people of Canada have had their say on carbon taxes in the last election. In fact, the Conservative Party, when they were in power, passed a bill called the Fixed Date Election Bill. So they keep calling, they want us to break the law. We won't break the law. You can break the law. We're not that kind of people.
Well, the GST break on many items will begin on December the 14th and last for a couple of months. It appears as though several business owners across Canada are taking issue with a temporary GST reprieve since they have to take the levy out of their system for that 8-week period, only to put it back in mid-February. Franco Terrazzano from the Canadian Taxpayers Federation has more.
You can understand why some small businesses are raising this type of concern, right? And the headaches that this could cause them. I mean, like, just think about it. You'll have some small businesses who sell different types of goods. They're going to have to go through their inventory and figure out what is to be taxed and what will be tax-free for that 2-month period. So, like, tax relief is absolutely needed right now, especially during a very stressful financial time. But what would be even better than a temporary GST holiday on a couple of things? Well, across the board tax cuts would be better, right? So cut spending, and how about you just cut the GST by a percentage point? So, some tax relief is good, but what really is needed is tax cuts on everything across the board permanently.
The federal government says prepared food, snacks, children's clothing, and footwear will be exempt. Also, kids' toys, books, newspapers, and Christmas trees will be GST-free beginning in mid-December. Well, the fall session has concluded at the Alberta legislature. Now, it kicked off with the introduction of the Alberta Bill of Rights Amendment Act, which was then followed closely by the Health Statutes and Education Amendment Acts. Albertans were also introduced to the Fairness and Safety in Sport Act. It's legislation that preserves choice for minors, supports student success and well-being in schools. Officials say it also protects fairness and safety for Alberta athletes in sport. Now, Government House Leader Joseph Scow says he's proud of the legislation his government introduced. He also responded to a question from a reporter that asked if Premier Smith may prorogue and offer a throne speech before the budget. But does that mean we may see a cabinet shuffle?
Well, cabinet shuffles are always the prerogative of the Premier, so I would never presuppose what she intends to do with cabinet. But I think we have a tremendous cabinet right now and an amazing colleagues and our private members who are working tirelessly for Albertans and doing a great job. So I'll leave that in her capable hands. I wouldn't be able to comment on that.
The Alberta government also announced financial help for Indigenous students looking to participate in the trades. Advanced Education Minister Rajan Sani says just over $1.5 million over 3 years will go to support the Indigenous nonprofit group Trade Winds to Success.
This is an Indigenous-led, non-profit organization which does great work in supporting Indigenous students through pre-apprenticeship training. Since 2005, Trade Winds has supported over 3,000 Indigenous students, helping to increase the number of Indigenous people training and working in the skilled trades in Alberta. That's an important step in our journey towards economic reconciliation.
Those in Edmonton who are hoping to pick up their rushed passports at Service Canada may be a little out of luck until at least Monday. Officials say the federal building on Jasper Avenue is closed due to flooding and other water damage. The staff were moved due to a leak with the hot water system, and there was also no heat in the building. While there are many Service Canada locations in Edmonton, the downtown passport office is where folks can get next-day delivery of their passports. The normal wait time for a passport is 20 days, with it being delivered by Canada Post. The report surfacing that Hezbollah terrorists are returning to southern Lebanon to retrieve weapons they left behind after they fled from the Israel Defense Forces. TBN Israel correspondent Yair Pinto explains.
Hezbollah terrorists are trying to get their hands on weapon stockpiles they left behind in southern Lebanon when they ran away from the initial IDF ground incursion in October, while the IDF chief of staff visits southern Lebanon and declares that Israel is strictly observing the ceasefire. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu clarified that we are in a ceasefire, not the end of the war. Meanwhile, a Hezbollah agent embedded with the Syrian army was eliminated on the road leading to Damascus airport, while Hamas terrorists were eliminated in an airstrike in southern Samaria. Speaking of Syria, the rebellion against the Assad regime is getting momentum, with fighting reported on the outskirts of the city of Hama. This raises the question of who these rebel groups are and what they would like to do with Syria if they manage to take control of it. It also raises geostrategic questions such as why is Iran angry with Turkey and how is Russia stuck in the middle of all of this? What will it mean for Israel's ongoing security crisis and the ever-present threats from the Iranian-led axis of evil in the Middle East?
Meanwhile, in South Korea, that country's opposition leader questioned the state of mind of President Yoon and vowed to make every effort to get him impeached. He says Yoon's controversial martial law imposition this week suggested he could make other extreme moves on vital issues.
사실 이번 계엄의 더 큰 위험성은 이 불법 계엄을 했다는 사실이 아니라 대체 아무도 이해할 수 없는 이런 계엄 결정을 내리는 대통령의 정신 상태에 있습니다. 안보 문제, 국방 문제, 경제 문제, 민생 문제, 외교 문제 이런 문제에서 도저히 상식적으로 납득할 수 없는 일들을 벌여나갈 가능성이 매우 높습니다.
An American carpenter working on the restoration of the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris following the devastating 2019 fire says at first he thought the task would be insurmountable. Hank Silver is among a small group of Americans who worked on the restoration of the cathedral and is proud of what they've been able to accomplish.
You know, when we arrived my first day and I saw the pile of oak logs at our workshop, I just started laughing with my colleagues. We just thought it was impossible. You know, we had 600 logs just for our part in the nave. And now, you know, I've seen those logs become this. And so walking through La Forêt, the forest, the medieval frame, I mean, it's like visiting your child or an old friend, you know? It's just got a different depth to it for me. Sometimes I think of us as rebuilders of the cathedral, but at the same time, the way I see it, a cathedral is a perpetual job site. And really, maybe we're part of the same crew in a way as those guys 800 years ago. It's just been kind of an unbroken, ongoing process.
What an incredible job with the restoration. Wow. Well, it was another kind of a wow day here in Lethbridge today. Nice and mild, warm temperatures, and above zero yet again. Jeanette Rocher is now with an early look at the forecast. Jeanette, those Chinook winds will be making things even warmer on Saturday?
True, they will be. Double digits actually are what we're expecting. High of 10 degrees there on Saturday, as well as some very strong winds. We're seeing gusts from 50 to 70 kilometers per hour on Saturday, and those strong wind gusts actually beginning this evening and overnight. So if you feel like your house is shaking, don't be alarmed. It's just the wind, but it's a warm wind, which is a great thing. So that means all the snow is going to melt away. And, it's going to be back before we know it. I'll be back later with the 7-day forecast.
Great, thanks so much. A nonprofit group in Calgary is giving out frostbite kits to folks living on the streets. The kits will include sterile dressings, gauze tubing, antibiotic ointments, and educational guides. Now, the homeless outreach group called Be the Change YYC began handing out the kits last year to help reduce the risk of infections, long-term damage, and amputations from frostbite. A nurse who volunteers for the group says complications from frostbite are made worse when unhoused people have limited access to medical care. The Chief Fire Marshal of Lethbridge Fire and Emergency Services stopped by the local senior citizens organization this week to talk about fire safety and prevention methods, particularly in the downtown core. Troy Hicks says there was a large increase in fires downtown in 2023, a lot that he described as opportunistic. He was able to provide fire prevention methods that home and business owners can take to negate a potential disaster.
The biggest thing we're trying to get out, especially in the downtown core, is just about more or less housekeeping, I guess you'd say, and just keeping the alleys clear of garbage and pallets, getting rid of any opportunity and any fuel load that people could possibly light up. And it's not even the main thing of people possibly starting a fire. It's also the fuel load in there, that heaven forbid another fire did start. It could even start naturally. And if a fire did start and there's lots of fuel load in the alley, that could just make the fire that much bigger, and it could spread more and more. So we just want business owners and people to realize that keep their areas well lit. It's a good idea to keep their dumpsters secured and locked. Just keep an eye out. Surveillance is huge. It helps out. Have cameras in your back alley as well as your front door. Make sure you're getting all your devices tested, and it'll just help to mitigate the risk of a fire.
Hicks adds that more fire prevention tips can be found on the City of Lethbridge website. With the rising cost of living throughout Canada, there is hope this Christmas for people struggling with affordability. A local charity organization is on a mission to bring some holiday cheer to families who cannot bring Christmas home on their own. BCN's Landon Hickok went to explore this initiative at My City Care's Shop of Wonders.
With the upcoming holiday season, there are a number of families that are struggling with financial insecurity and are worried about providing enough food and gifts for loved ones this upcoming Christmas. But there's a local charity organization here in Lethbridge that are hoping to provide a little bit of relief for those families here at the Shop of Wonders. The Shop of Wonders is a holiday program initiated by My City Care that provides financially insecure families with a one-of-a-kind shopping experience. Families can stock up on gifts and stockings for their children, all without cost. The program is in conjunction with the Christmas Hope Foundation, where charity agencies in Lethbridge, including Angel Tree and Interfaith Food Bank, collaborate to provide residents with toys, food, and clothing this upcoming Christmas.
All of the donations come from either local businesses or local individuals who just are passionate about our programs and the way that we help people. And so, we couldn't do this without the support of our community. People give toys, people give cash contributions so that they can help us to be able to put on this program.
This year, Shop of Wonders is able to reach 500 families and supply gifts for 1,400 children in the Lethbridge area. But their reach goes far beyond Lethbridge. Other communities in Alberta and surrounding provinces have opened up their own My City Care branches to bring in similar support programs.
We have Tabor, Claresholm, Okotoks, Penticton. We are actually always looking to help other cities and other communities start My City Cares. And so in starting a My City Care, they would start to run some of the programs that we do as well. We are actually just speaking with a church in Calgary that's looking to do that as well. So we're just excited about that opportunity to just reach more people, more communities.
And with more locations, My City Care is calling for more help from residents and businesses in those areas who can chip in support of their own.
We go through about 1,600 toys a week that are given out through the program, so it's a lot. And one of the best ways to give to us right now is definitely cash donations, because we're just needing to be able to meet the shortfalls that we have to make sure that we've got enough gifts for all of our shelves to be stocked and parents have choice.
The current shop in Lethbridge is located at 640 13th Street North and will remain open until December the 17th. For Bridge City News, I'm Landon Hickok.
The Festival of Nativities will be on full display this weekend in Lethbridge. The massive indoor display can be viewed from 1 till 9 p.m. daily until Sunday at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints next to the visitlethbridge.com arena. Now, the indoor display is in its 10th year and will showcase around 550 nativities showing the true meaning of Christmas. The theme this year is Back to Bethlehem, which highlights that Jesus is the reason for the season. Organizers say along with the nativity sets, there will also be 5 community concerts in the chapel taking place tonight at 7 p.m., also Saturday and Sunday at 3 and 7 p.m. The Salvation Army in Lethbridge is gearing up for another very busy Christmas season. Now, you may have seen and heard volunteers jingling Christmas bells by the kettles as they collect donations for the many families in our area who will need help during the busy holiday season. Lieutenant Zachary Marshall of the Lethbridge Salvation Army shares how many families they may have to help this Christmas.
So we're estimating in Lethbridge that between all of our helping agencies, 3,500 adults will be assisting for food and other Christmas activities, and 6,500 children. So we're looking at 10,000 individuals in Lethbridge. And speaking from the Fort Macleod side, we do have a food bank in Fort Macleod, and we're anticipating helping 65 families out there, which is much more than we have seen in years past. So we're definitely anticipating a large year for demand of services across all helping agencies, and it's not a good thing. We're in an industry where we wish we could work ourselves out of a job, but that is certainly not the case this year.
Make sure you catch the full interview with Lieutenant Zachary Marshall from the Lethbridge Salvation Army and BCN's Jeanette Rocher coming up later in our broadcast. Well, it was another beautiful day across much of southwestern Alberta again today, and the warmer temperatures should remain as we head into the weekend. A full look at the weather forecast is coming up. You know, it's so nice that many of our roads are fairly dry right now in the city of Lethbridge. The warmer temperatures have melted so much of the snow and ice. Jeanette Rocher is in now with all of the weather details. The warm temperature should continue as we begin the weekend, but things could change, Jeanette, as we may see more of the white stuff on Sunday.
Yes, but likely not until Sunday evening. So during the day on Sunday, we're seeing mainly cloudy skies. Those flurries could start that evening, and overnight we're seeing 60% chance of those flurries. Let's talk about Saturday, though, shall we? We're seeing the double digit there, high of 10 degrees. Tomorrow with nice, clear, sunny skies, except for those Chinook winds. Expect those winds from the west at 50 to 70 kilometers per hour. Then we got the mainly cloudy skies on Sunday with a high of 4. Could see some flurries that evening. Back to clear skies on Monday, and then back down to 0. Then we're going to start getting back to the pluses again for the rest of the week. So Tuesday sitting at 2, and then 6 for both Wednesday and Thursday with partly cloudy skies. Not bad at all, considering the average high for this time of year is 1 degree. Average low right there, minus 11. 13 was the record high in Lethbridge. That happened back in 2020 and in 1956. Lethbridge saw its record cold, which was minus 34. Sun rose this morning at 8:14. Sunset this afternoon at 4:31 p.m., giving us 2 minutes less daylight than we saw yesterday, which means 8 hours and 17 minutes of daylight. Okay, let's move over to the national forecast here. Victoria seeing some rain showers in the morning and 40% chance of more showers by the afternoon, high of 11 there, 10 for the high in Vancouver. Here's the thing about Vancouver. They are under a rainfall warning for tonight right through Saturday, expecting to 50 to 70 millimeters of rain. And in Metro Vancouver alone, 25 millimeters tomorrow. As we look to Edmonton, mix of snow and rain, 2 for the high there. High of 6 tomorrow in Calgary with a mix of sun and cloud. As we look to the rest of the prairies, we're seeing mainly clearing skies. -1 for the high in Saskatoon, 1 in Regina, and 4 degrees in Winnipeg with clear skies. Toronto seeing some snow, 2 to 4 centimeters actually in Toronto there, high of 2 degrees. -5 the high in Ottawa and -6 in Montreal with a mix of sun and cloud. Now, as we look to Maritimes, we're seeing mostly snowy conditions except Fredericton, lots of clear skies there. -7 for the high, -4 in Halifax with a 30% chance of flurries. Same thing here in Charlottetown, 30% chance of flurries, -7 for the daytime high, and a +1 for St. John's with a 40% chance of flurries. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
Canada's unemployment rate jumped to 6.8% last month. That's up from 6.5% in October. Stats Canada's November Labour Force survey says the jobless rate last month reached the highest point since January of 2017, outside of the COVID-19 pandemic. The economy added 51,000 jobs in November, with employment gains concentrated in full-time work. Now, here in Alberta, the number of unemployed Albertans increased by 7,000 this month and 51,000 year over year. Officials at the Bank of Canada have their eyes on today's job report as they gear up for another interest rate announcement on Wednesday. TELUS is challenging a federal order on whether the big 3 telecom providers should be able to access each other's wholesale fiber internet networks in Canada. The company is accusing Ottawa of trying to overturn an independent CRTC decision, improperly entertaining submissions from select internet service providers, and failing to consult with the provinces. The CRTC opened a consultation into the matter last month in response to Cabinet's direction, which TELUS is asking to quash. More than 300,000 Dodge Ram heavy-duty pickup trucks have been recalled because a faulty part could cause certain braking and tracking systems to fail. The recall includes about 22,000 vehicles here in Canada. Stellantis says the hydraulic control unit on the trucks is prone to failure. That could in turn cause the anti-lock brake, electronic stability control, and traction control systems to not work properly. The Netherlands-based automaker says regular braking systems are not affected by the defective part and that it's unaware of any related injuries. The trucks in question are all models in 2017 to 2018 and include the Dodge Ram 2500 through 5500 model series. Now, here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was up 11 points on the day to finish at 25,691. The Dow was down 123 points to 44,642. The S&P 500 was up 15 on the day to 6,090, and the Nasdaq was up 159 points to 19,859. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down $1.17 to $67.13 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 2 cents to $3.10 US. Gold was up $1.43 to $26.3330 US an ounce, and silver was up 60 cents to $31.93 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $8.41 per bushel, barley's at $6.62, canola's at $13.72, and corn is at $7.75 per bushel. Live cattle were up 40 cents to $187.38. Feeder cattle January contract was up 90 cents to $255.83, and lean hogs were up 88 cents to $83.30. The Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours to 70.60 US.
Recapping one of our top stories, a number of dignitaries gathered in front of the main Montreal campus of Polytechnique today to pay tribute to the 14 women who were killed at the engineering school back in 1989. 13 others were also injured in the attack by anti-feminist Marc Lépine. He later took his own life, but prior to that, ranted about how feminists ruined his life. Coming up, a very powerful and insightful interview of how Prison Fellowship Canada is reaching inmates for Christ. The organization's president, Stacey Campbell, will have details for us momentarily. When you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. Also visit our website anytime to check out a number of stories and interviews. You know, there are a number of Christian organizations across Canada which visit prisons planting seeds for Christ. So whose job is it to visit prisoners and offer some solutions to help folks get back onto the right path? Today's guest has a few ideas. Stacey Campbell is the president of Prison Fellowship Canada. She regularly works with prisoners and joins us now from Mississauga, Ontario. Stacey, welcome to Bridge City News.
Wonderful to be here.
Now, how would you best describe what your organization really does?
So our organization takes a holistic approach where we work with the entire cycle of the justice system. So we work with prisoners, we work with ex-prisoners, their families and children, especially this time of year, and then victims as well.
So how did you initially get involved with prison ministry?
Actually, my story goes back a long time ago to when I was 15 years old, where I worked in an office that was giving free office space to Prison Fellowship, and that's where I connected with the organization to begin with. And little did I know that God was going to take that string and pick it up, and many years later, bring me into the organization. So I came in as a volunteer, and then just continued to see a number of opportunities where we could do things. And the board approached me and asked me if I'd come and join the organization, and I did, and I've never regretted it.
So we'll get into the nuts and bolts of what you guys offer with your ministry in just a moment. But Stacey, did God really reach into your heart one day and say, you know, there's a real harvest opportunity here?
For certain. For me, it was, I was working in a company at the time, and actually it was my own company, and I was working there, but God just kept speaking to me about returning to school, actually. And I went back to seminary and did a degree in seminary. And it was there where God kept saying to me, what about taking this to prisoners? What about this theological thing I was working on, or whatever it was? And what about taking this to prisoners? And I was really kind of taken aback and not so interested in that. But God just would not let up. And finally I said, okay, I will go and I will volunteer for 1 year inside a prison, and I'll travel with journey with a group of prisoners for 1 year. And that's what I offered, and God took that. And I will tell you quite honestly, after the first day that I was in, I knew that was it. I was gonna be here for a long time.
So do you talk to both female and male inmates?
Yeah. Adult male, adult female, and youth.
Now, I understand part of the journey is to learn about forgiveness. Tell me about how you really minister to a lot of prisoners.
So, really, we have a really relational approach with prisoners, and finding out really just where prisoners, where are they at? Where did they come from? What's their story? Not necessarily their crime story, but their life story. And that's really where we begin. I have a favorite passage. I like to take the Ecclesiastes passage that talks about a time to heal, a time to mourn, and it has this lovely cadence back and forth. And I like to read that with prisoners, and then just ask the question, what time is it? And that's a really great way to locate someone. When I came into the organization originally, I instituted the rule that every staff member would spend a half a day a week in the prison, and that way we wouldn't build lofty programs, but we'd really understand the people we were working with. And if there was one thing that prisoners wanted to talk about, it was forgiveness. And you could ask, what does everyone in the group want to study now? Or what do we want to talk about now? And they'd say forgiveness. And you could journey with them for 52 weeks, an entire year, and come back the next January and say, okay, where do we want to go? And they would say forgiveness. And so we built a curriculum. It's called the Forgiveness Journey. And it's a 10-week program that looks at forgiveness from all different biblical angles, and it's been a joy to minister with prisoners with that.
Do you go to some of the maximum security facilities, or is there more medium? And the reason I'm asking that, do you talk to some of the hardcore criminals behind bars, those convicted of murder?
Oh, for sure, yeah, absolutely. We're in the maximum units, the the mental health units, the some of the forensic units, medium security, minimum security. Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
Stacey, tell us a bit about your phone call program for prisoners. How does that really impact inmates' lives?
I love this. So when COVID struck, it was just 2 weeks before COVID became serious enough that things were shutting down. And an organization called us and said, "Listen, we've got this phone line in the prison, and we're not using it. Would you like to have it? It takes years, and you've got to go through layers of government to get approved for it and whatnot. Very, very difficult to get." And I said, "Sure." And at the time, I thought I would take it for another program that we had where we could connect with prisoners before they left into our bridge care program, which is our aftercare program. So I took it for that reason. When the COVID shutdown happened very quickly, there started to be a mental health decline in the prison. And I had a chaplain reached out to me and said, "Hey, could we use that phone line with you guys, just so guys could call up and like have a 15 or 20 minute conversation. They're not able to get out. They're not able to have their visits. They're not able to interact with anyone else." And so very strategically, I didn't want to lose it for bridge care. So very strategically, I said, "No, you can't use that phone line, but if you'll approve another phone line, I'll build a program." So that was the fastest yes in history, and the phone line got approved, and then we put in a phone line that operates from 9 in the morning till 9 at night, 7 days a week. And I just had our statistics come in for the last year. So we took just over 5,000 phone calls last year, and for prayer and spiritual friendship, and it's been amazing.
That does sound incredible. Now, we hear a lot of good things about restorative justice programs, Stacey. Prison Fellowship Canada offers this for current inmates along with ex-inmates. How does the process really work?
So there's an interview process where we really look at timing. Shame is a very common experience for someone who's involved in the system, and shame brings a lot of denial and an inability to face some hard truths about what somebody has done. And so we meet and go through an interview process, and when we mutually can agree that the timing is right to go into a program like this, we offer a 4-month program. Our program is called the Sycamore Tree. And they go into the program, and we work through a variety of things. We talk about shame, we work through shame, we talk about victim empathy. We run an exercise where a great number of prisoners will say, "My victim just became a real person for the first time to me." And so we lead them to that place. We lead them back to the moment of their arrest, and allow them to process that. We talk about what crime is. I mean, it's a sin against God. It's a sin against the public, against rules that we need to abide to keep each other safe. It's a lot of things, but without the judgment, and with the safety. Just exploring some of these topics, making amends, symbolic restitution, forgiveness, confession, which is very different because what most of them are used to is interrogation, not confession. But biblical confession is very different than interrogation. And so we go through a number of these things. Then we bring in surrogate victims who have suffered. They're not each other's victim and offender, but the victim that comes in will have suffered a similar crime to the one that the prisoner has perpetrated, and then they hear the stories of impact of what happened to that individual, not only during the crime, but how did it impact them 2, 5, 10, 15 years later, and what were all the things that were taken from them. And it's very liberating and healing for victims who often will speak of the prison as a place of defeat. If they've driven by it before, that's always felt like a place of defeat, but then goes on to be a place of victory because they've told their uncensored story, and had a chance tell their whole story and not just a clip of their story. And then the prisoners continue on after that point in a number of other subjects that we talk about, and then we all come back together. The victims and the offenders and the community is invited in, and we have an evening of reflection and learning. The prisoners share what they've learned through the program, and so do the victims.
Stacey, let me ask you something. How do you approach a prisoner, let's say that maybe from a Muslim background, Sikh, Hindu, or maybe even from, the First Nations community, Indigenous? Is the approach different, or is it very similar?
Certainly, from a Christian perspective, we would approach everyone with the same compassion and the same dignity. We wouldn't worship together, that's for sure. If another individual was interested in attending a Bible study, we would absolutely welcome them, but we would not alter our program.
Let's talk about how effective restorative justice really is, in your opinion. What are your thoughts?
Wow, that's a good question. I mean, statistically, it's very effective. So experientially, I would say it's effective. To give you an example of some of that, we often see very early on in the sessions, we see prisoners who cancel appeals. And we'll say, I can't go out there and say I'm innocent and come in here and pretend to take responsibility. And it gets very uncomfortable, that living that dichotomy. So we see that impact, but then we also see the impact later on after they've completed the program and they're acting as ambassadors and mentors to others. And now, instead of solving arguments with violence, we use something called a talking piece, and it goes around the circle, and everybody gets a chance to talk when they're holding the talking piece, and you don't talk when you're not holding the talking piece. And so we've seen many prisoners kind of employ something like that in their communication style afterwards, and then when they go out into the community, and then we don't see them come back. So it may be a prisoner that we were familiar with that came back over and over and over and over, and then after going through the program, we don't see them come back.
But according to your website, you say the chance of an ex-prisoner offending is around 70%, except, of course, if they come to know Christ. Jesus is the Lord and Savior. So how much of a difference does it really make when prisoners read Scripture and have someone to guide them along the way?
So it's a huge difference. In fact, the recidivism rates fall down into the single digits. So yeah, it's impactful, and that's what's wrong. Oftentimes when it comes to crime, we say, well, they're not educated, or they're poor, or a whole myriad of things. But really, it's a heart change that has to take place. And I believe the only thing that can really transform a heart is Jesus Christ.
So what's it like for a prisoner re-entering society after serving a lot of time behind bars?
Pretty tough. We often refer to it as the second prison. So you've been sent out. Now, if you fill out a job application, do you have a pardon? Have you committed a crime for which you have not been pardoned? So there's all these barriers to employment. There's barriers to finding housing. Oftentimes, just because somebody is released from prison doesn't mean that they're not on parole and that they're not under the supervision of corrections. And so police may be coming around to see if that person is behaving, and it gets uncomfortable for perhaps a landlord or an employer. So often prisoners are afraid to tell an employer. If they've cleared that barrier, then clearing the next barrier is it's really difficult.
Stacey, prisoners, many of them come from families, and some of them have children of their own as well. So how are the kids really impacted by their mom or dad being in prison?
Yeah, that's a tough one. So we know that children with an incarcerated parent, typically the first thing that happens is that if the family wasn't already in poverty, they go immediately into poverty, because now one of the people that contribute revenue to the house is no longer doing so. So that comes with a lot of shame. We refer to the children of prisoners often as the unforgotten or the forgotten victims of crime. They're ashamed. They don't want to tell people at school, not as likely to initiate socially, start to decline academically, a whole host of things like that, unless there is an intervention, and that's where the local church can really play a great role, and that's where our Angel Tree program also comes into play.
Stacey, we only have a few moments left here, but I want to ask you about a success story of a prisoner who was really restored and their life really changed after going through Prison Fellowship Canada and some of your programs.
Okay, so I'll tell you about an individual, and then you can see I'm beaming just as I think of this individual. But we have a few for sure, and quite a number of them. But I can think of an individual in particular who went through the whole restorative process, went out, decided that they wanted to become an electrician, and went back to school. Went through the whole process, and for the sake of time, I won't go into the whole thing. But it was a difficult process. But even to the point where we had called to see, now we knew they had an apartment. Did they need anything? We provided a mattress to them so that they had a bed and a kitchen table and chairs, and then followed up with them a few months later to ask, is there anything we can help you with now? And they said, you know what? I'm going to be okay. I've been educated. I've got a job. Give it to someone who really needs it. And that individual became a donor and is a regular donor to Prison Fellowship.
Stacey Campbell is the president of Prison Fellowship Canada. Thanks so much for joining us today from Mississauga, Ontario.
Thank you.
With cold, snowy weather hitting us in southern Alberta, along with the financial pressures of our current economy, there are individuals and families who are in need. The Salvation Army has been helping out for over 100 years now. And joining me now is Lieutenant Zachary Marshall with the Lethbridge Salvation Army. Lieutenant Zachary, welcome to Bridge City News. Great to have you with us.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Of course. Okay, so can you first of all tell us a bit about the different kinds of help that you offer locally to our community in Lethbridge and Fort Macleod?
Absolutely. So the Salvation Army is actually the largest non-governmental provider of social services in Canada. So we take that legacy very seriously, and we have a variety of things that we offer our community. So here in Lethbridge, we're kind of ramping up to our busy season with our Toys for Tots campaign. And that's kind of one of the biggest things that we do in terms of our ministry to the community at Christmas time. But as well, we have a variety of different things. We have a thrift store for people who are wanting to shop affordably. We have food assistance for people who kind of just need that stopgap help. We have a Pathway of Hope program, which I think we'll talk about a little bit later. And yeah, so we're just kind of all over the place, just trying to meet needs as they come to us.
And it's your busiest time of year, as I'm sure it's the busiest time of year for almost everybody, but especially, charities for sure. So now, how has inflation and the shortage of affordable housing impacted our community? Are you seeing more people in need of help these days?
Absolutely. The demand for our services, especially at Christmas time, is on the rise. And I think that's true of all of the helping agencies in Lethbridge. It is an unfortunate side effect of the inflation and how things are going. And we're really just seeing families who are struggling. We're seeing families who have never had to reach out for help before. Reach out for help this Christmas time. And, people are faced with the impossible choice. Do I pay for rent or do I pay for Christmas? And we're really kind of seeing all sides of it. And it's heartbreaking. It's devastating. We're happy to help, but it is unfortunate that there is such a demand for our help.
Yeah, no kidding. And are you noticing any increase in people needing help to overcome addictions, or is it about the same as last year?
It's about the same. I mean, as you know, the opioid crisis is ongoing, and here in Lethbridge, we see it every day. And I would say that our demand for that is pretty similar to what we've seen in the past number of years.
Yeah, and you offer those services too, right? The counseling and...
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier our Pathway of Hope program, and that's kind of an end-to-end framework of how we can come alongside families and individuals and help. So when somebody comes to us and we take them on as a Pathway of Hope client, we're able to connect them with housing supports, with addictions counseling if that's something they need, with budget classes, whatever they might need to kind of help them step out of the cycle of poverty and into kind of some more stability. Pathway of Hope offers it. So we're really happy to do that for our community, and we've seen some success in that.
That's wonderful. I can't believe all that you guys do. It's incredible. And if somebody does need help, perhaps some counseling or some help with food or clothing, how do they go about getting that?
So they could visit our website, lethbridgesalvationarmy.ca, and we have all of our resources available there. Or they could either call our office, 403-328-8611, and one of our team members will be very happy to field some calls.
Wonderful. And of course, we were talking about how this is a crazy time of year. So every year, the Salvation Army does the annual Toys for Tots outreach at Christmas time. So tell us what that's all about and how we can get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we are big believers in the magic of Christmas. And I personally hold true to the fact that I think every child deserves to open a gift on Christmas morning. And that's kind of where our Toys for Tots campaign comes in. We're one of a few agencies in Lethbridge that provide toy assistance. And our Toys for Tots campaign this year, we will see 500 children and parents come through the doors to shop for their kids, and hopefully we can provide some toys. So we do have some drop-off locations throughout Lethbridge at locations like Toys R Us, Center Village Mall, and the Toy Mountain Drive that they're doing there, and other places in Lethbridge. So we're really ramping up because the time is coming near in the next couple of weeks where we're going to be busy being elves in Santa's workshop is how we kind of refer to it. And it just is really special for us to be a part of that.
Right. And this is where parents can go and actually shop for their kids. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. How do people apply for that?
Yeah, so we have an online application on our website. So lethbridgesalvationarmy.ca/register. That's the link to our application, and we still do have room. So now's the time to apply if you're thinking about it.
And then, of course, speaking of this time of year, I believe that your annual Kettle Campaign fundraiser is underway now. So what's the fundraising goal and where do the funds get distributed?
Yeah, so this year we have a big goal of $220,000, and that money goes directly to support the work that we do in our community at Christmas time with our Toys for Tots campaign and our food assistance, but really throughout the year with some of the programs that we're able to offer. So the need is increasing, and we're really banking on the generosity of the people of Lethbridge to help us meet that $220,000 goal.
Mm-hmm. And of course, we have a huge postal strike going on right now. So Zachary, has the postal strike affected donations, and what are options for people who usually mail in their donations?
Absolutely. The postal strike could not come at a worse time for the Salvation Army and other charities. And actually, compared to this time last year, our donations are actually down 50%. So we're really feeling the pinch, and we're really kind of starting to worry a little bit about what that looks like for our outreach programs throughout the year. But because of that, we've had to get a little bit innovative with how we accept donations, and we can accept donations in just about any way that people want to donate. So they could give online. Again, the link is on our website. They could give over the phone. We can take card or Visa or MasterCard over the phone. They could give at any one of our 7 Kettle locations. We accept cash and check and tap at every location. Or they can drop off their donation at any of our locations. So 1302 4th Avenue South or 1811 2nd Avenue South.
Yeah. Has the TAP payment really helped increase donations for the Kettle campaign?
It certainly has. I mean, nobody, or not a whole lot of people carry cash anymore. I can't say nobody, the TAP donations account for about 15% of all of the donations come in. So that so it is a help, absolutely. It just gives one other option for people who are passing by our kettle to stop and make a donation.
Yeah, and you were saying donations are down 50%. That's shocking to me. Why do you think that is? Do you think it's the economy, or is it the postal strike, like we were saying?
I think it's a variety of reasons. I don't think the postal strike has necessarily helped the case, but when we're thinking of inflation, the demand for our services are certainly on the rise. But the flip side of that is things are so much more expensive for everybody. I think we're all feeling a pinch this year. And so not everyone is able to help in the ways that they have before. So it is kind of really two sides of the same coin. So we're really kind of just banking on the generosity of people to shine through and to help their neighbors out.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of that, roughly how many families are in need of receiving food hampers this year? Is that number increasing or is it decreasing?
So we're estimating in Lethbridge that between all of our helping agencies, 3,500 adults will be assisting for food and other Christmas activities, and 6,500 children. So we're looking at 10,000 individuals in Lethbridge. And speaking from the Fort Macleod side, we do have a food bank in Fort Macleod, and we're anticipating helping 65 families out there, which is much more than we have seen in years past. So we're definitely anticipating a large year for demand of services across all helping agencies, and it's not a good thing. We're in an industry where we wish we could work ourselves out of a job, but that is certainly not the case this year.
Yeah. So when it comes to the food hampers, how are people donating that food? Is it a partnership with the food bank?
Yeah, so here in Lethbridge, the two food banks, so Lethbridge Food Bank and Interfaith Food Bank, are taking care of all food hampers. And we, of course, partner with them as much as we can. And in Fort Macleod, we actually have the only food bank in Fort Macleod. So we take care of the families in Fort Macleod. So if you're in Lethbridge and you're wanting to donate, the two food banks are certainly the best option. Even if you wanted to donate to us, we'll make sure that it gets to the food bank. And certainly if you're in Fort Macleod, we're happy to kind of take your donations.
Yeah, and I believe you're part of the Angel Tree campaign this year as well, right?
Yeah, so we're part of the Christmas Hope Partnership. So Christmas Hope is what we do every year with the helping agencies in Lethbridge. So it comprises Lethbridge Food Bank, Interfaith Food Bank on the food side of things. And then for the toy agencies, it's our Toys for Tots campaign, it's the Angel Tree campaign, and it's My City Care Shop of Wonders. So we really work together as much as we can, just to kind of maximize our efforts and to make sure that everybody who needs help is being helped. So it's a beautiful partnership. It works really well, and we're grateful for it.
Yeah, exactly. And people can drop off toys as well, like unwrapped.
That's right. Unwrapped new toys at any location that accepting it, and one of our toy partners will benefit from that.
Yeah. We were speaking about donations and, of course, the TAP, all your digital, that helps. Do you find that the majority of your donors are still donating the old-fashioned way with cash? What are you finding? Or has that number increased with the digital days?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially at our kettles, the predominant way to donate is cash. We're seeing about 85% of our donations come through cash. And I think it's just, we're so used to using cash, even if we don't carry it regularly, people will say, well, I know that I'm going to donate to the Salvation Army's kettle, so I have to go and get some cash to do so. So, it's a beautiful way to donate. And I think having the TAP is, one more way for people to donate, but we're just happy that we're getting some donations in, absolutely, whatever method it is.
Yeah. And is the Salvation Army in need of volunteers right now, or more volunteers?
Absolutely. We're always looking for some people to help us at Christmas time. So especially with our kettle campaign. So at every location that our kettle is out, we're hoping to have volunteers on for 2-hour shifts to help greet the public, thank people for their donation, but it's also a safety thing, with that volume of cash. So we are looking for volunteers, and to volunteer, people can visit our website or look at our social media, the Salvation Army in Lethbridge, to learn more information.
Yeah, so you get to stand there and ring the bell, right?
That's it.
And just
It's a very special time.
be merry. And a lot of people might not be aware that Salvation Army is actually also a church, and you have regular Sunday morning services. So maybe tell us about other activities that viewers should know about.
Yeah, that's right. So in addition to what we do on the social services side, I am also a pastor with my wife, and we pastor at the Salvation Army Church in Lethbridge. So, Christmas time has a little bit more of a special meaning for us as we're looking at what we can provide, because we're also holding true to the hope of the gospel, right? And holding true to the belief in Jesus Christ and his coming into the world. So it's very special for us to have these outreach activities at Christmas time. And certainly through our church, we have a small army of faithful volunteers that help us to achieve our goals and our outreach purposes in Lethbridge. But the one thing I would highlight is that we do have Sunday morning services at 10:30 at our location at 1302 4th Avenue South. And we are having a candlelight service on December 22nd at 6:30. So it's always such a special time, kind of when the Christmas season is winding down as we approach Christmas Day. It's a special time to carve out a little bit of time just to consider the true meaning of the season.
Oh, so lovely. Again, what is your website for people who want to donate their time or their money?
Yeah, so our website is lethbridgesalvationarmy.ca. All of the information that you might need if you want to donate.
Drop off
or
points for
volunteer.
toys and food and whatnot.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's all right there.
Okay, perfect. Well, everybody get your donations in of food, toys, cash. It's certainly people definitely need it this time of year. Zachary, thanks so much for being with us today. Appreciate having you on.
Thank you, and Merry Christmas.
You as well. Merry Christmas. Lieutenant Zachary Marshall is the pastor at the Lethbridge Salvation Army. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks so much for watching.